you are well, and I also hope that you have or had an amazing day. All right, so today we will be doing our grade 2 English lesson on contractions. So we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on contractions. And before we start with our lesson, you are going to log in to aplusstudents.ca with your username as well as your password. And you're also going to select the subject of language arts. All right, so once we have logged in, selected the subject of language arts, grade 2, now we're going to scroll down to the articles, the chapters, up until we get to contractions. So we're going to select contractions. So under the chapter of contractions, the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today is to form pronoun verb contractions, to form contractions with not, to use contractions in a sentence, to use pronoun verb contractions, and we're going to use contractions with not. So that is going to be our focus lessons for today under the chapter of contractions. All right, so we are going to start with form pronoun verb contractions. All right, so a contraction, right? A contraction is a shortened form of two words. So it is a shortened form of two words. So it is two words, right, that we basically put together, and it is as if we are shortening that word, right? So once we put those two words together, right, we then use an apostrophe to show where one or more of the letters are left out, right? So a contraction, it is a shortened form of two words, right? So these are the two words that we basically put together, right? And we then put or we add an apostrophe to show where one or more of the letters are left out. And a contraction can be formed from either a pronoun, or a contraction can be formed from a verb. So contraction, it can be formed from a pronoun, or a contraction can be formed from a verb, right? So, for example, I am, right? So I am. These are the two words, right? So I am is the two words, right? So, like I said, we then basically put that two words together, right? But also with putting the words together, there are some of the words that we're going to be leaving out. So, for example, I am is going to become shortened for I'm, right? So I am, right? So what's going to happen is we are going to remove the A, and then we're going to put the I and the M together. So I, and that word that we removed or that we left out, we're going to put the apostrophe there in the place of the A, and we put the M. So it's like saying I am, and the missing letter is the apostrophe that shows that we have left something out. So it's I am, meaning that it is I'm. So I'm is a shortened form of the two words I am. For example, you will, right? So you will. You will, right? We need to basically shorten these two words by putting it together, right? And then whatever word we leave out or letters we leave out, we put the apostrophe to show the letter that we've left out. So the shortened form of these two words is you'll. So it is you. We leave the W and the I out. We put the apostrophe in that place and we put the double L. So it's you. So you will means you, right? So instead of saying you will have to buy potatoes, right? You can just say you'll have to buy potatoes. I am going to the shop. I am going to kick the ball. You can just say I'm going to the shop. I'm going to kick the ball. And we call these contractions, right? Which is shortened forms of two words, right? And we say that we put an apostrophe to show where one or more of the letters are left out. That is now when we put the two words together in order to also make it shorter or to create a shorter form of the word, right? And a contraction, it can either be formed from a pronoun or contractions can be formed from a verb. So contractions can either be formed from a pronoun or a verb. So it's either or and a verb, right? Either way. All right. So before we continue with our tutorial, let us quickly go over here. So contractions, right? So once again, a contraction is one word made from two words. It's like we said, we put those two words together, right? And then we make one word. So contractions is one word that is made from two words, right? And the first word, it usually stays the same, right? And if we make an example, then let's say, for example, I am, right? So they say the first word, it usually stays the same. So I will stay the same, right? Certain letters are then taken out of the second word, and then apostrophe will then fill the space of that missing letters. So now, for example, with I am, right, in order for us to, let's say, make one word from the two words, we then say I'm. So which means that we leave out the one word, which is a. We put the apostrophe in its place, and then we join the M in the second word in order to, let's say, make one word from that two words. So instead of saying I am, we say I'm, right? And they say that the first word, it usually stays the same. So I will stay there. But now we start taking out letters from the second word, right? Let's look at is not. Here we have an example. Is not, right? They said that the first word, it usually stays the same. So is. Now we need to join these two words or put these words together in order to make one word, right? We are shortening these two words, right? And making it one word. So isn't. So isn't. So we're going to put an N, put the apostrophe in the place of the O that we are taking out, and then we put the T. So it's like saying is not without the O, right? So now it becomes isn't. So is not is the same as shortened for isn't. right? So once again, contractions, it is a word. It's one word made from two words. And the first word, it usually stays the same, right? Certain letters are then taken out of the second word, and then an apostrophe will then fill the space of the missing letters. So we basically put the apostrophe in place of the letters or letter that we left out, right? And there we have an example of is not. Joined together, put together to make one word is isn't. We left the O out and we put the apostrophe in the space of that missing O that we removed or we left out. And now a contraction is a shorter way to say two words, right? So like we said, it is two words that we shortened by making it, let's say, one word basically, right? So contractions is a shorter way to say two words. So instead of saying is not, we can say isn't. Instead of saying I am, we can say I'm, right? An apostrophe will then fill the space of the missing letters. And remember, we said that the first word, it usually stays the same, right? Example, we have a few examples of contractions, right? Which is shorter ways to say two words. For example, I am. So we have I am. And we shorten it by saying I'm, right? Oopsie. Let me do this. So we said I am, and we shorten it by saying I'm, an apostrophe. Then we have we plus are by saying we are, right? And then we shorten it by saying we're. And the A that we left out, we put the apostrophe over there, right? Because if you're not going to put the apostrophe by we're, it's going to be were, right? We were standing at the bus stop. And that is not the word that we want. We want contractions, right? She will. She will, right? It's shortened for she'll. And the WI that we left out, we put the apostrophe. He is. We shorten it by saying he's. And the I that we left out, we put the apostrophe in its place, right? Then we have do not. And we say don't. You have, you've, it is, it's, did not, didn't, you would, you'd, they are, there, right? So these are contractions, and we said contractions is a shorter way to say two things, right? A contraction is one word that is made from two words, and the first word usually stays the same, right? Certain letters are taken out of the second word, right? It is removed or it is left out. And then when we remove or leave out that letters, an apostrophe will then fill the space of that missing letters, right? So these are contractions. And in here we have a few examples of English contractions. I'll, which is I will. You'll, which is you will, he'll, which is he will, she'll, which is she will, we'll, which is we will, they'll, which means they will, and then the same on the other side. So now we're going back to our tutorial, right? And we're going to type the contraction that matches the word. For example, we are. We are. We need to shorten these two words. We need to shorten these two words. So we are. So we are. If we shorten these two words, then we can say it is we're. And the A that was left out, we put the apostrophe over there, right? That is a contraction, right? It is shortened form of the two words, which is we are. And the apostrophe is also in place to show where we basically left out the A, for example, in that word or that two words, right? So we are, same as saying we're. It will. It will. It will. We need to type the contraction that matches the word. It will. Right? And if we type the contraction that matches the word, then we will say it. It sounds like it'll. It's almost like it would sound like it'll, right? And the WI that we left out, we put the apostrophe. Almost like to show it will. It'll. It will. Right? And remember we said earlier on that the first word, it stays the same, or it usually stays the same. And then we basically shortened or we leave out letters from the second word, right? So it will, it's like it will, it will, it will. You are, you are. We need to type the contraction that matches the word. You are. And if we type the word that matches the contractions, the contraction that matches the word, then we say you are is your. You, which is the first word, stays the same. And now we basically remove letters from the second one. So your, right? Which means that we left out A. So we're going to put the apostrophe in place of the A, the missing letter. So you are, right? You are. So you are is the same as saying you are. All right, let's go to the test, right? So now we're going to do a little test on the either form pronoun verb contractions and where we need to type the contractions that matches the word. All right, so now we need to type the contraction that matches the word, right? They will. We need to choose the correct contraction that means they will. A shortened form of the word they will. Is it they'll or they will? We need to choose the correct word that matches or the correct contraction that matches the word. They'll or they will. All right, so if we basically have to choose contraction, then we will say they'll, right? Because they'll is a shortened form of their two words. The second word is not even shortened at all. So they'll, right, which is option 1. She is. She is. We need to type the contraction that matches the word. Is it she's or she's with apostrophe outside or after the word she's? Or if the apostrophe is before the S, which shows that we remove the I. All right, so if we type the contraction, we will say she's, which is option 1. So she is she's. All right. He will. He will. Is it he will or he'll? He will or he'll. We need to type the contraction that matches the word. So he will or he'll, right? We need to choose the contraction, the correct contraction that matches the word. So he will, right? It is shortened for he'll. All right, let's do one more. They are, right? They are. Is it they are or there? So we will say they are instead of they are, because now it is a shortened word for they are. All right. All right, so that is forming pronoun verb contractions, right? Now we're going on to form contractions with not. So now we're going to form contractions with not, right? And once again, we said a contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? An attraction, it shows where one or more letters are left out. And we then use an apostrophe in that case. A contraction can be formed either from a verb and the word not, right? So contraction can be formed from a verb and the word not. And in most contractions with not, the spelling of the verb does not change. The apostrophe just takes the place of the O, right? So if we basically put that words together, right, and then we put the apostrophe where we basically left out or removed the O. For example, is not, is not, right? So is not, the contraction of is not is isn't. And as you can see, we basically just let the apostrophe takes the place of the O that we left out. Were not, right? And were not is weren't. And we put the apostrophe in the place of the O that was left out. Then the contraction can't is special, right? So can't is special. It is short for cannot, right? So I cannot complete my work or I cannot do this activity, right? So instead of saying cannot, you can say I can't or can't. And then whatever the problem is, right? And to make the contraction, we need to drop the letters N and O, right? This is now within the word cannot. And then we put the apostrophe in that place. And remember, only one apostrophe, even if you are removing more than one letter. For example, cannot. So we remove the N and the O, and then he has can't, right? It makes can't. So cannot means can't. And then we have the contraction won't. Won't, right? And won't is so special actually because the spelling of the verb it changes, right? So will not, right? So we don't say willn't, right? Because willn't does not make sense. But with the contraction won't, right? It is special because the spelling of the verb it changes, right? For example, will not. Like I said, will not be willn't, but it is won't, right? I won't do dishes today. I will not do dishes today, right? So that is contractions. All right, so we are now going to type the contraction that matches the word. Does not. So does not. We need to type the contraction that matches the word. Does not. So we need to, if we type the contraction, right, of does not, and then we will say, if we shorten it, right, it's a shortened form of these two words, and then we say doesn't. Just open my pen. Doesn't. Right? Oopsie. No. I put the wrong. It's doesn't, which is does not. Doesn't. Right? So then we have does stays the same. And we have, for example, not, remove the O, and then we put the apostrophe in place of the letter that was left out, which is the O in not. So does not means doesn't. Is not. Is not. We need to type the contraction of the word is not. And if we type the contraction, we will say it isn't. And we put the apostrophe in place of the O that we left out. So isn't. All right. Then we have has not, right? Has not. And the contraction of has not is hasn't, right? Hasn't. And hasn't, as we can see that the apostrophe is there in place of the letter that we left out, and basically only the O is left out. But has, which is the first word, it says the same. All right, let's do our little test. We need to type the contractions with the that matches the words, right? The contractions that matches the words. Do not. So do not. We need to find the contractions that matches the words. Do not doesn't mean do not, or doesn't mean don't. don't or do not, right? So we will choose don't because we specifically said it is shortened forms of words. So do not means don't. All right. Did not, right? Did not. Is it the first option, which is did not? Or is it the second option, which is didn't? Did not, or is it didn't? So seeing that we need to shorten it, we can say didn't. All right. Are not. Are not. We need to type the contraction that matches the words. So are not. And are not, we need to choose the correct contraction, which is the second option, which aren't. So aren't is the same as saying are not, right? And in have not, we need to type the contraction that matches the word have not. Is it the first option, which is have not, or option two, which is haven't, right? Haven't. All right, so if we choose the correct contraction, then we will say haven't is our contraction. All right. So these are how we form contractions with the word not, right? We basically just, let's say, remove the one letter, for example, O, and then we put the apostrophe in that place, right? All right. So that is to form contractions with not. Now we're going to use contractions in a sentence. We're going to use contractions within a sentence. And a contraction, once again, is a shortened form of two words, right? And an apostrophe shows where one or more of the letters are left out. And a contraction can be formed either from a pronoun and a verb. And a contraction can also be formed from a verb and the word not, right? And in most contractions with not, the spelling of the verb does not change. The apostrophe then takes the place of the O, right? Because the O we've left out, right? And then the contractions, the contraction can't, right? The contraction can't is special, right? And it is short for cannot. And to make the contractions, we need to drop the letters N and O in the word cannot. We put the apostrophe in its place, and then it basically becomes a shortened form of the word, which is can't. And can't is a word, is a two words that we put together, and we made a contraction from the word cannot, right? right. We now need to complete the sentence with a base contraction. Cole, seen the movie yet. So Cole, seen the movie yet, right? So now, is it Cole hasn't seen the movie yet? Oopsie. So it hasn't seen the movie yet? Or haven't? So we either need to choose between these two words. So Cole hasn't seen that movie yet, or Cole haven't seen the movie yet. All right, so in this case, we will use the word hasn't. Hasn't. So Cole hasn't seen the movie yet. So hasn't is a word or the base contraction to complete the sentence. So hasn't. All right, we're moving on. Why am I here? All right, we're going to complete the sentence with a base contraction. Sadly, right? So sadly, we need to choose between these two words. It is, right? So sadly, it is supposed to rain all of next week, right? So if we shorten that word, it is, right? We say that the first letter stays the same. We added a apostrophe because we're not taking the I with, and then the S. So it's. So sadly, it's supposed to rain all of next week. So it's. Sadly, it's supposed to rain all of next week. It's. And then, stopping by to see us later this afternoon. So then we can say, they'll be stopping by. See? So they'll. So they will, right? But we are not going to add the W and the I, and we put the LL. So they'll be stopping by to see us later this afternoon. All right, so now we're going to go to our test. We need to complete the sentence with the base contraction. That test, is it hasn't too hard, or that test wasn't too hard? We need to choose one of those words in order to complete the sentence. So if we want to say that the test, it was not too hard, then we can say the test wasn't too hard. All right. When is it when is in the country? We love taking long walks. Or when we're in the country, we love taking long walks, which means that it is option 2. So where. Sadly, supposed to rain all of next week. So we can say it's, which is it is. All right. And then cold things. Is it I'm with the race tomorrow or he'll with the race tomorrow? So cold things. I'm with the race tomorrow. Oh, did we not choose the wrong? Oh, Colin thinks, sorry. Colin thinks he'll win the race tomorrow. So not I'm, so he'll, sorry. Because Colin is a boy. Sorry, I misread it. So Colin thinks he'll win the race tomorrow, which means that he will. But now, in cases like this, right, either where you, for example, the word or the test can be tricky, sorry, so now you maybe get it wrong, or you maybe misread it or something, then what you can do is you can then scroll down, try to find the correct answer, copy that link, the correct answer with the link in copy the link, send it to us, and you can get 100 bonus points. But in this case, I just read it wrong. So I apologize. All right, the last one. We found fireflies in the backyard and isn't flashing, or they're flashing, meaning they are, or isn't, meaning is not flashing. So we found fireflies in the backyard and isn't flashing, or we found fireflies in the backyard and they're flashing, meaning they are. Right? So we found fireflies in the backyard and they're flashing, meaning that they are lighting up and they are flashing. All right, so that is now using contractions within sentences. Once again, if we have a test and you, for example, either get something wrong in the text, because remember, it's not really about the fact that it is wrong, but our test is made tricky in order for you to be able to either understand it or in order to, like, let's say, test you, right? So if you do get something incorrect, you can then scroll down, let's say, find the correct one, and then the correct answer, copy the link, send it to us, and then you will get 100 bonus points, right? So that is basically what you have to do whenever we have a test and you get something incorrect. All right, so far this is the contractions that we did, and we have formed pronoun verb contractions. We formed contractions with not, and we also use contractions within a sentence, right? And we said contractions, we go back to this one. We said contractions, right? It is a shorter way to say two words, right? It's basically like you putting that two words together, and then you are leaving out certain words and certain letters. And whatever letters you are leaving out, right, you need to put an apostrophe in the place or in the space of that missing letters, right? And contractions, it is basically one word that is made from the two words, and we said by putting that two words together, the first word of that two words, it usually stays the same, right? And then certain letters are then taken out of the second word, right? And then we put an apostrophe in the space of the missing letters, right? So those are contractions. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on contractions. Um, Thank you very much for joining our class. Grade twos, till next time. You should have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.